Hey, good morning, CFO Jimmy Petronis. Jimmy, how are you?
Golly, it
I can't hear you, I can't see you, but I know you're there.
Okay.
Thank
I
you for
hear
your great
now.
service to
Absolutely.
our citizens and the taxpayers of Florida.
Thank
You're the bomb. You're a great partner.
Good morning, Treasurer. George
Sorry,
Lemieux
just
here.
a minute.
Hey, Senator.
How are you, sir?
Good.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. It's been
Yeah.
it is
Hello, Mr.
nasty weather
Chairman.
up in Tallahassee.
I can't hear you, but I know you're on the call, on the Zoom call. Thank you very much for making yourself available in your very, very busy, incredibly busy schedule.
My pleasure, Dominic.
You're welcome. We're going to get started in just a moment. Chris, are we ready to go? Okay. Good morning, everybody, and welcome. My name is Dominic M. Calabro, and I'm honored to be the President and Chief Executive Officer of Florida Taxwatch, the eyes and ears of Florida taxpayers for over 40 years. And welcome, and thank you for joining this morning's Florida Taxwatch virtual press conference. Today, we will be unveiling two important reports developed under the oversight of Florida Taxwatch Senior Vice President Bob Nave. The first is Bringing the Sunshine State Back, the impact of COVID-19 across Florida's economy and options for recovery. This takes a look at COVID's impact on each of the major segments of Florida's economy. The second report, The Best Defense is a Good Offense. The economic impact of protecting responsible Floridians from COVID-related civil liability. This one we partnered with Dr. Clyde Deo, founder of the Regional Economic Consulting Group, which does a great job for us and all the taxpayers of Florida, and makes the economic case for appropriate safeguards for our economy, basically looking at the cost of doing it and the cost of not doing so. We believe these findings and recommendations provide the foundation for moving the state toward economic recovery and a responsible liability shield. Before we dive into these reports, I'd also like to introduce, and most importantly, introduce our chairman, U.S. Senator George Lemieux, and also Chairman of Gunster, to say a few words. Chairman Lemieux.
Thank you, Dominic. I'm proud to serve as the chair of this independent, nonpartisan, nonprofit government watchdog and Taxpayer Research Institute, who for more than 40 years has served as the trusted eyes and ears of Florida's taxpayers. There's no doubt coming out of this pandemic that Florida has much to do to bring our state back. But I am confident that our elected leaders, with the guidance of groups like Taxwatch, will be able to do so. Taxwatch is committed to tackling the tough issues and by providing research and recommendations. And that's really what makes Taxwatch different. There's a lot of great organizations in Florida, but Taxwatch backs it up in a nonpartisan way with research. That's the incredible work that Taxwatch does. I want to thank the entire Taxwatch staff, including Vice President Bob Nave and President Dominic Calabro, for this research effort. I want to thank Belinda Kaiser for her work in spearheading this research effort on behalf of our board of directors. And now I'd like to welcome my friend and the great Chief Financial Officer of the state of Florida, Jimmy Petronis, who's been a great partner to Taxwatch. Jimmy?
Thanks so much, Chairman. Appreciate what you've done with your leadership in the state in so many different levels. Dominic, you're just a stalwart when it comes to the financial accountability of our state. The folks that you have mentored over the years that have rose through the ranks at your staffing levels at Taxwatch are now all over doing successful things. So appreciate your leadership and what you do to contribute to the proliferation of good fiscal responsibility and good fiscal policy. Look, there's no two ways about it. COVID-19 has dramatically changed the outlook of the state of Florida. The sky was the limit back in January. Over the last 12 months, we have seen such dramatic changes, and especially over the last 10 months, how much more extraordinarily challenging it has been at so many different levels. But as we are looking at the road ahead, and I appreciate the leadership that Taxwatch is showing about this, business liability is something that I've been very sensitive to. I grew up, 30 years of my life was working in a family restaurant. No smaller business is smaller than a family-owned, operated restaurant. But as we hear the challenges, as my phone has been ringing, as those families have been affected, dry cleaners, you name it, the small businesses that are the backbone, the biggest job creator of the state, the concerns are, how COVID is going to affect them and the liability of their businesses. We've been traveling all over the state, and not with a focus on restaurants, but just because restaurants are typically, again, the small business, whether it be Gainesville or Jacksonville or West Palm or Orlando or Tampa or Pensacola, taking our message on the road, meeting with small business owners, partnering with legislators. And it's been great to get the legislative input and buy-in early on as we see this, where we have seen signals from both the House and the Senate that this is going to be a priority. COVID liability is not to be a invincible shield. If you're a good actor and you're doing things right by your employees and you're following the policies that have been set forth by the legislature, you should have some peace of mind that you're not going to be open to some type of a sue and settle environment of litigation. So as people are embracing CDC guidelines or Department of Health guidelines, we want to give them some peace of mind, and doing nothing is not an option. But as businesses are struggling and as they're being polled, the biggest concern they've got is dealing with COVID. Will I even reopen again? And we have seen it pretty recently, at least, and what I've been hearing and seeing as boots on the ground, especially those family-owned businesses that may not have a succession plan, or they have burned through the reserves. They'll simply make the business decision and pull the plug and not reopen. So this is time for the Florida legislature to act, and our citizens, they're looking for leadership from local government, from state government, from federal government. And this is exactly what our call to action is, and why we're so excited about partnering with Taxwatch. But again, I think the three things I've been keeping pretty simple is take care of our employees, take care of our people, keep the policies simple to follow, and put people over attorneys' profits. I think if we keep that as kind of a guiding template, and have that, at least that level of expectation to the legislature, we'll be able to accomplish good. But we cannot do it alone. We have got to hold our legislators accountable, and me is also part of that included party. But as Rep. McClure will have the bill in the House that we're going to be closely monitoring. Senator Brandis will have it in the Senate as we're closely monitoring. We look forward to keeping you and your team abreast as that bill travels through the process. And I think it's going to travel at a pretty rapid pace, considering the urgency and how important this is to the business and consumer confidence and employee confidence of our state. But as we're moving forward, I look forward to helping create, with the partnership with y'all, a bigger, better, stronger Florida. Our work is set forth. We've got some lifting to do, but again, with your partnership, working together, the sky's the limit to succeed. I'm really optimistic when I consider looking at what other states are going through right now. Governor Sanders has done a great job at focusing everything he can to focus on the environment and also protect the Florida economy. Dominic, I'm fine for any questions that you might have.
Thank you, CFO Petronis. So thank you, Jimmy, for your continued great leadership and friendship with Florida Taxers on behalf of the taxpayers of Florida. Throughout the pandemic, Florida Taxwatch has taken the lead in working with partners across the state and keeping a focus on the critical economic recovery that must accompany the health-based recovery we are working so hard to achieve. Obviously, the most important thing is to have the vaccine and kill the virus. That's simply the single most important thing. But right up there next to that is to make sure we have the protections where we protect good actors and discourage bad actors from acting. In fact, even penalize those who do act poorly. Taxwatch's work last summer included the creation of a Taxwatch COVID-19 Taxpayer Task Force. And it really offered ways that the taxpayers can save with tax administration. And I want to recognize Senior VP Kurt Winter for his leadership on that, as well as Jeff Binkley that helped us from Ryan Company. That was very, very important. You could look at that on our website, www.floridataxwatch.org. But also, these help contribute to the reset effort. And I want to give a personal shout out to Associated Industries of Florida for bringing together so many businesses, NFIB, realtors, hospitality sector, Taxwatch, among others, about 50 statewide businesses in all. Speaker Tom Feeney, thank you for your leadership on that. One of the most important things it came up with was this issue of COVID liability limited shield. So I think it's very important, and we're happy to bring a unique perspective to that, and that is what's the fiscal and economic consequences of acting on it, and the economic and fiscal consequences of not passing one. So we spent the second half of last year examining the impact and major economic sectors evaluating the paths. So part of that was releasing this report, bringing the Sunshine State back, the impact of COVID-19 across Florida's economy and options for recovery. This is a deep dive into 11 major sectors of Florida's economy and provides recommendations specific to each of those sectors. Well, we realize that Florida's economy has often been described as a three-legged stool, relying on tourism, agriculture, as well as real estate and construction. But nowadays, these industries are still very important to our state. But one key item you'll take away from the report is the evidence that our more than 2-decade focus on diversification and economic growth has really, really paid off. So Florida's diversified its economy far more, and agriculture is not quite the same contributor, but is enormous and very, very important no matter what. And to weather the storm, we have to recognize that as well. But again, more than anything, the most important thing that we can do is ensure that our policy leaders heed the advice for policy, regulatory, and fiscal prudence as one of the reasons that Florida remains open for business. And companies are moving here even in the midst of a pandemic. So when you read this report, you'll see the impact the pandemic has had on our economy last year. And you also find recommendations for each key industry if we plan to ensure a strong recovery. As you read this report, you also know there's one clear recommendation that cuts across all others, and that is the need for a responsible liability shield for responsible companies, nonprofits, government agencies, churches, schools, synagogues, healthcare providers, and everything from costly, unnecessary litigation. Well, simply the most important thing is minimizing the virus or killing it ultimately with the vaccine. The next most important thing is protecting the health and economic well-being of all Floridians through this kind of appropriate shield, which gives customers and employees the added confidence that when an employer, nonprofit or for-profit follows the guidelines, they're going to be covered. So it gives them more incentive to do that. Given the intricacies of widespread liability shield, we're also today releasing a standalone report that's the best defense is a good offense. The economic impact of protecting responsible Floridians from COVID-related civil liability. We've been here before. Taxwatch has looked at, in 2006, what it takes to enact joint and several liability, and it was really through the groundbreaking research and testimony in the Senate Judiciary Committee that broke the tie, broke the log jam, and got that important piece of legislation passed. Likewise, we see the same potential for runaway litigation, very costly, frivolous suits, which would have a devastating impact on Florida across the board, but especially our businesses as they try to recover from global economic crisis. Safeguards today are essential to ensure that all industries across Florida remain open, and failure to act can have dire consequences. Very simply, here are the compelling facts of the economic study. If employers' confidence in the economy is shaken due to the absence of a shield, we would reduce the Florida economy by as much as $28 billion of gross state product and personal income and more than 356,000 jobs. More than 356,000 jobs on an annual basis. Dude, who wants that? Nobody. Either political party, no one does. The Florida legislature should establish safeguards to protect businesses and nonprofits and government agencies and their agents and individuals from liability against specific types of COVID-related claims so business can reopen and remain open. But make no mistake, It's also critical that these safeguards ensure that those who get COVID-19 because of gross negligence or intent to harm can fully recover, and those bad actors are prosecuted. We need to make sure good actors are protected and bad actors are punished. Let me repeat that. We need to make sure that good actors are protected and bad actors are punished. I'm encouraged that we enter the first week of the legislative committee meetings. One of the first bills in each chamber is this COVID limited liability shield. We've spoken to the sponsors. They've made their comments with regard to Taxwatch's work in this regard, as you heard from the CFO. So we're very pleased about that. Let's also remember that the health crisis, just to walk into a frivolous lawsuit, is so costly and pays the price. So before I go much further, I also want to thank one of our very important business leaders in our state and a pronounced national leader in education, particularly secondary education, Taxwatch member of the board and executive committee, and vice chancellor of Kaiser University, Belinda Kaiser. Ms. Kaiser, could you come join me?
Well, thank you very much, Dominic. And let me first say thank you, Dominic, for leading Taxwatch for over 40 years, to the team of Taxwatch, and this critical conversation we're having about COVID-19. Over the years, you have been very, very laser-like focused on protecting the taxpayers of this state. And for that, we owe you a big, big debt of credit. Let me also say, ladies and gentlemen, that as a educator for many years in the state of Florida, with about 21 different locations, working along with other independent colleges and universities known as ICUF, we are focused on talent development. And I know that you know that talent development really drives job development, and job development is great for our Florida economy. So as we move forward with this COVID limited liability shield, we know that responsible businesses need reasonable protection from frivolous lawsuits. And this legislation looks to provide guidelines, looks to provide thoughtful protections, making sure, as Dominic has said, that strong actors, good actors are protected, not the bad actors. So ladies and gentlemen, let me say that as we work together with all other partners, other public educators, other companies of all sizes, our healthcare providers, this is a very important initiative, a very important initiative that I hope that we will all embrace. It is being passed or looked at other states, and Florida has always been a national leader in our economy in making sure that we continue to be the state that many other states, other people want to live, work, and play and make their homes in. So again, I want to say thank you to CFO Petronas, our chair, George Lemieux, and of course, the Taxwatch team. Thank you.
Thank you, Belinda. And really to round out this final speaker, I'd like to add is my own friend and a member of the Taxwatch Board of Trustees for many, many years now, but also someone that is an ardent supporter of the small businesses of Florida, which are absolutely the backbone, the fundamental backbone. I think some 70–80% of all businesses, they are the backbone of Florida, and they're the ones that could really, really need a good shot in the arm. Bill Hurley, Executive Director of Florida National Federation of Independent Business, Florida. Bill?
Thanks, Dom, and thanks, Belinda, for your leadership. Bill Hurley with the National Federation of Independent Business. I'm the Executive Director of the NFIB in Florida, and I want to thank Dominic for bringing this research forward and demonstrating the vitalness of this reform and the urgency of this reform. I represent small independent business owners, and over a quarter of small business owners are indicating to us that they may not be in business another 6 months from now if some conditions don't improve. Since the very outset of this pandemic, small business owners have been making COVID-driven management decisions every day. Every day, they're making dozens of decisions based on their good faith effort to follow government-issued public health standards. In doing so, they're keeping our economy alive. In doing so, they need to know that the state has their back. To this moment, it doesn't. And that's why it is so urgent that these liability protections are passed at the earliest opportunity by the legislature. I do want to commend legislative leaders for bringing a strong bill forward, and we look forward to working with them, demonstrating to them that this bill is something necessary for our economy and needs to be passed at the earliest opportunity. We've seen over 500 liability cases so far. I assure you that that is just the tip of the iceberg. And small business owners have great apprehension going into 2021 that all these continued acts that they're taking every day to keep their businesses open are leaving them more and more vulnerable to lawsuits. So I want to thank Taxwatch and Dominic and the whole Taxwatch team for assembling this very impactful report. We're going to make sure that all the legislators read it and take appropriate action in passing this good COVID liability reform. So thanks, Taxwatch, and I also want to thank CFO Petronas for his strong leadership throughout the summer. Really one of the earliest voices in raising this concern that the economy faces. We're counting on legislative leaders to get this job done at the earliest opportunity. Thanks so much, Dominic.
Thank you all very, very much. If there are some questions, we'll try to answer them now, or if for convenience, we can answer them offline, whatever is your preference. Chris? In the absence of any, we'll take your.
Hang on, let's give folks on the line the ability to unmute if they do have any questions. I know we had one come in for CFO Petronas from John Kennedy. CFO, are you still with us?
Okay.
Okay.
Hello, John, you there?
There you are. CFO, the question is, have you made any attempt to examine why 1/4 of COVID-related lawsuits filed are businesses suing their insurers? Are insurers failing to pay rightful claims? And isn't this an area where you could play some advocacy role? Or do you conclude that these are businesses who failed to understand that many business interruption policies specifically excluded pandemics as a reason for a claim?
Well, we led early on that issue back in March. Most of y'all remember we took the governor's order that he established, and we made sure that we pushed out that all risk management under the state of Florida was covering first responders when it came to COVID related liabilities. That ultimately ended up creating a trigger effect with the League of Cities, with their insurance policies. We saw other carriers around the state, workers' comp carriers, embrace it. As best as we could, we tried to push out, an expectation that we needed this done where we had direct jurisdiction. We made it happen, and we definitely applauded those that had. The phone calls that have ensued afterwards have actually been pretty light. If you go pull the data, workers' comp claims during the period under the COVID-19, pandemic right now are less. Workers' comp claims in general are less than they were this same period of time compared to last year, the previous years. So anyway, then some of that's just going to be because teleworking has put people at home. So anyway, I think we've tried to do the best we can to address it with the tools that we've got in order to ensure workforce in Florida is protected.
Thank you, CFO. For Dominic from Mike Sinan, what type of spending measures should the legislature do or not do, raid reserves, cut in specific areas, et cetera?
Well, that's a very good question. I think actually two things. There are many opportunities in a $93 billion state budget to reduce expenses, to keep them under control. I think that is mainly the concern of our Senate President, Senator Wilton Simpson, as well as appropriations chairs in the House and Senate. Taxwatch has offered over 20 some specific ways to part with unnecessary spending without adversely affecting core functions and constituents. So there are opportunities, tremendous opportunities to save money in the multi-billion-dollar budget. So I'd say that's the first thing. The second is we're really blessed that we have a AAA bond rating in some important measure because we keep a focus, nonetheless, on keeping spending under control. No matter how prosperous the economy is, it's of no value if spending is out of control. And so it's very important to spend wisely where it has the greatest impact and cut costs where it doesn't. So those opportunities do exist. We can show chapter and verse where and how to do it, and we'll work with the legislature and the governor's office to achieve that. Good question. Thanks.
We've got from Mary, excuse me, Mary Ellen Klaas. Question for the CFO or Dominic. Could you provide us any data with the number of COVID-related liability lawsuits? That is actually in our report. Dominic, if you've got that in front of you. Trial lawyers say the bar is so high to accuse a business of COVID exposure. There are new cases that will emerge. What hard evidence do you have that this is a problem in search of a solution? In the back of the liability shield paper is the actual list, and that's as of, I think, the beginning of December.
Thank you, Mary Ellen. I think the answer is 490 something lawsuits. As of December, yeah. So there probably are more, but again, one of the things we discovered when Taxwatch worked with the House and Senate leadership in 2006 on joint and several liability, it wasn't so much the adjudication in court. It was all the cost that it took to remedy it, to address it. So joint and several liability was often used as a weapon. It was weaponizing the legal system to kind of really force people's hands, even when they really didn't have substantial liability. And so what Taxwatch did, working with the House and Senate leadership, showed here's the impact over the last 5 years from 20 circuits. We had the compelling evidence information, and that broke the logjam. Similarly, I think we look at evidence to make sure. And again, if we go too far, we'll have to pivot. But the key is let's not be inadequate in our response. Florida's the third largest state. Not only is it the Sunshine State, but a megatrend state. Let's set the example of doing this right.
From Jossie, the current COVID-19 business liability legislation requires doctors to sign an affidavit attesting to where the patient got COVID. This may not be something doctors will want to get involved in. How willing do you think doctors will be to sign something based on patient testimony? Couldn't this be a hindrance to filing these lawsuits?
You know, I don't really can't fully answer that question. It's not really my field of inquiry and expertise, but I would say this, that they could just give the best approximation, the best available knowledge they have at that time, and that's going to have to be the best solution at that time. I guess it's also valuable so that we could trace where someone may have contracted the disease, so you can get at the point, get at the source, and eradicate it at the source. Well, listen, we want to thank you all very much. This is really important. This is evolving, it's growing, and Taxwatch will be there every step of the way. If there's anything else that we can do to provide fiscal facts of how we spend tax, we're happy to do it, state and local government. I think, you know, we're really looking forward to coming out of this. Lord knows we all want that to happen, but we're working very diligently in a constructive manner to do it, to build our democracy here throughout the state of Florida. Thank you all very much. Appreciate you.